Code Vein. Oh my god. We're finally going to talk about possibly the sleeper hit of 2019. Sleeper Game of the Year. Cult Game of the Year. I don't know what to call it, but it's good. So, last night I just got the last ending, the good ending to Code Vein, and I've spent like 150 hours in this game. Like I think it's better than it deserves to be, or way better than I thought. I don't know, but so two things. One thing, so I got the final good ending, and so the first time I went through, and the ending you get depends on how many vestiges you do. So the first time I got the neutral ending, just because I didn't know what I was doing. I think I missed Nicola. Second time I just rushed it and got nothing, and so I got the bad ending on purpose. And this time I made sure I got all the vestiges and did them before the boss fight, so that I could save everyone. And that's awesome, and it's cool. And I love all the endings. They're all so interesting and different, and I thought in this ending I would like kill the essence of the queen somehow, but instead, well, spoilers, I won't spoil it, because maybe not everyone has played Code Vein, but I got my cyberpunk industrial gothic vampire anime Dark Souls video game. I got exactly what I wanted, and maybe a little bit more. So, because I guess people might not have played Code Vein yet, but you should. And I don't usually say that about a lot of games today, which kind of sucks, but this is a game you should play. It's good. So, oh yeah, the one detractor I wanted to bring up. So I was like, oh, maybe I'll platinum this game just because I have almost all the trophies. And it's like, one of the last trophies I need to get, besides the multiplayer, like whatever one, is view all the endings. So I got the last ending, the good ending. That's all three. I'm like, okay, that's it, right? And I didn't get the achievement. I'm like, what's going on? Is this a glitch? And so apparently, there is a fourth secret ending that is exactly like the last good ending, but you do one thing slightly different, and one thing slightly changes, and then you can get the achievement. And I'm like, I have to do this whole thing again? Are you serious? So, I don't know if I want to bother now, because that was just kind of like a slap in the face. But there are a lot of things Code Vein does and surprise me with. So, this is one of the few games I've pre-ordered, just because I was like, it looks really cool. I'm going in. I don't care if it's terrible. And I did kind of expect it might be terrible. It might be awful. But to my pleasant surprise, it's really good. Like, if I were to give it a number, it's like a 7 out of 10. I don't know. That sounds kind of harsh, but like, it's a pretty decent game. And how it relates or compares to Dark Souls and Bloodborne, which is more recent. So my biggest detractor when I tried the demo for Vein was the combat feels very floaty. Like, you don't have that massive impact when you hit your enemies in Dark Souls, and to a lesser extent, Bloodborne. I felt Bloodborne, I don't know, I have this thing I notice with a lot of games that are the first in this series, the first Halo, Mario 64, is that everything feels very physical, very, I don't know, meaty. Even I think the best example I can think of is the original Super Smash Brothers. It's very physical. I don't know how to describe it, but you feel like you're actually hitting the guy, and the sound effects definitely help. While the other ones are kind of, let's make it more fun rather than making it feel like you're actually, hitting the guy. So Code Vein, the big issue I have with it is that it does feel very floaty, but after like half an hour, I didn't even notice, because I was having fun. Ooh, the F word. You don't hear that anymore in games. So I guess a few ways it compares to Dark Souls. So it does have more of a defined story. So there is like, you have a bad guy, but at the same time he doesn't actually show up until like way later, and it's not the best story, to be honest, but it's not bad. I think the characters were surprisingly well done. So one of the mechanics in the game is that when a character dies, they respawn, but they leave behind a piece of their memories. So you collect all the memory crystals or whatever, and you see people's backstories. And they were somewhat like surprisingly interesting stories. Because I was expecting, it has the anime aesthetic. A lot of anime aesthetic games have really bad stories, and that's just how it is. But it's just a thing that anime games typically have really bad stories, and they're cheap outs just based on the aesthetic. And you dump in 80 hours into an RPG, and it's like that was okay, and that's kind of what I was expecting. But some of the stories are very I don't know, they're just really unexpected, I would think. There's two characters in this game, Jack and Eva, who I don't in any way, I do not ship characters ever, but this canon ship is like really good. It's one of those things where I'm not just looting Eva, it's just Jack and Eva together are really good. They're just good, and there are characters who are like, the power of friendship or whatever, and blah blah blah. Other things in terms of gameplay, it's pretty similar, I guess, to other Dark Souls. I actually ended up messing around with the the button configuration, because it was like you could map almost every button to wherever you want. So, despite, I think the default light attack was square and the heavy attack is triangle. So I was like, no, I wanted traditional. So I worked out a setup that worked for me. So I had R1 and R2 being my light and heavy attack. I guess another criticism, if you could call it's not a criticism actually, because they changed something, but it works in a different way, so they don't really remove it. What I'm getting at is, in the original Dark Souls, your sprint and roll button would be the same button. So when you if you tap the circle or whatever, you would dodge, and if you held it down, you would run. And it was like, that works. You like have two buttons in one. And this one, it's separated, which is kind of weird. However, there is a mechanic that is really cool that works with it. So, and that's the other thing I really want to say right now, that Codevein, it's not just anime Dark Souls. It actually adds a lot of really interesting gameplay elements to the game, and this being one of them is that, so your dodge and your sprint are separated. However, when you hold down the sprint button, your attacks also change. So if you hold down sprint and light attack, you usually do a move that is like a knockback or a knockdown move on the enemy. It's a little bit slower. And then if you hold sprint and then do your heavy attack, you do this vertical upward swing, and that becomes very useful. And there's another mechanic in this game called focus state. So this is kind of cool, where either you so you have a meter, and this is pretty, I would say, unorthodox for a Souls game, but you have a meter that builds up, and it builds up by you taking damage or by you dodging enemy attacks. And what happens is, when it goes full, it just automatically, you enter this focus state where you turn kind of light blue. And what it does is you're faster, you do a little more damage, you don't get staggered as easily. But the main thing is that if you do specifically the sprint plus heavy attack move in this mode, you go into like an automatic parry state. So you just, Like if you're fighting this huge guy and he's just wrecking your ass, you can just be like, you know what? I'm in focus state and I can do that one move. It is risky though, because it does take a long time to wind up. It's one of the longer wind up moves besides just holding down the heavy attack button and doing whatever special move with your item. And so that's cool. And there are quite a few weapons in the game, I guess. It's, I guess, pretty similar to Dark Souls. You have your short swords, long swords or heavy swords, pole axes, heavy axes, hammers, and the bayonets. The bayonets are really cool, actually. Cause yeah, I guess there's not really a weapon like that in even Bloodborne, where I think there might have been like there was some pole or like spear-like weapon in Bloodborne that was also a gun by the Powder Keg gang. I can't remember what it's called, but so it's kind of like that, where the muskets are actually really fun to use and useful and very stylish. And that's the thing about Code Vein. It has a lot of style. It has a little bit of soul. It could have used a bit more soul, I feel, but it was very stylish. All the armors are really cool looking. It's like it's just unapologetically edgy, and I love it for that. The bayonets are really cool. Some of them have really special effects, interesting effects. They also have this strange, I guess, attack system. Like usually you just attack with your sword, and it, depending on the sword you're using, it'll do like a swipe up, swipe down, vertical, horizontal, etc. It doesn't really matter. However, with the bayonets, so you can attack with them, like with the blade, and they work like a normal sword. But some of them have these combos, or this, I don't know what to call it, attack pattern, where on the fourth hit, the character automatically jumps back, which is really cool if you're exploring fast and you're fighting an enemy and they die, and you just do an extra attack and you jump backwards so you can quickly get to the next place. Or if you automatically makes you jump back so you can shoot them and finish them off or something. They also have this cool thing where, so your Ichor, so there's this thing called Ichor in the game, which is essentially your, what is it called in Bloodborne? There, Quicksilver? Your blood, you would have like your blood tinge and I think it was called Quicksilver, or your Quicksilver bullets, and you'd use that for your magic and your bullets and whatever. So it's similar here, where your Ichor is like this special blood or something, this white blood, and so what you do is you use your blood to fire the gun, as well as for magic attacks as well. So the cool thing is your normal thing is just a long range attack. It does damage, it doesn't parry the enemy, but if you hold it down, it'll do a different attack, or usually just a more powerful bullet. But some of them do different attacks. Like if you hold down your heavy attack, it'll do a spread shot, and the best one is, the first gun I upgraded is the Riot Breaker, because that's literally a shotgun. And and the best thing is it has penetration. So if you have 10 low-level enemies coming at you, you just charge that up and fire it once, and they're all gone. It's the best feeling. I love area attacks. They're just fun to see everything die in one hit. I guess I also touched on the powers in the game. So this is interesting. So part of the lore is that you have the blood. I won't give too many spoilers, or any. I'll try. You have the blood of essentially this powerful being known as the Queen, and they talk about that later in the game. But you have this, so your blood is special, and so as a revenant, when they're brought back to life by this special parasite, each person has something called a blood code, where your specific blood, DNA, whatever, you can manipulate your blood in certain ways to make powers. It's just magic attacks, basically. So you can use, fire, ice, electric, and then blood-based And so if you'd imagine blood-based just looks like this weird red effect. So you can like add blood damage to your weapon, and it's covered in this red misty thing. And it can do other, different attacks too. So you have, your magic attacks that are spears that go through people, that you shoot at them. You have ones that are a ball that, go through all the enemies and keep hitting them. You have one that are area attacks that just blow up everything around them. You have some that, some really interesting ones that do specific, like they stun lock, etc. And so the part of the lore is that your special blood is that you can use any blood code. So it's this cool thing where each character in the game, you can basically just have a taste of their blood, and then suddenly you add those blood codes to your inventory of powers. But it's a weird thing that I actually enjoy, where you get their blood code and then you get a range of powers, but you can only equip those powers when you have that blood code also equipped. And all the powers are mapped to the D-pad and the buttons. Oh yeah, sorry, you have to hold down a special button, which I mapped to L2, and then you can activate the D-pad and also all the buttons. So in total you can have 8 powers equipped at any time. I'm gonna finish up on that thought though, because even though you can only equip these blood powers when you have a person-specific blood code equipped, which also might increase your dexterity or will or whatever, or increase it. Once they also have a level up meter, so once you use that power, or you use that code to kill enemies enough, those codes become universal, and then you can equip it to any other blood code if it has the same stat booster. So, you might have a different blood code that lowers your willpower or something, and then even though one of the powers from the blood code is universal, your stats are now not high enough to use it, which kind of sucks. So, like, by the end of the game, there's not one blood code that's like, oh yeah, this is the most universally friendly blood code. Because when I play the end of the game, I want to have all the powers, I want to have all the weapons equipable, which is like kind of a weird thing. That there are some blood codes where, because it decreases your strength and increases your magic power, that you can equip certain weapons, which kind of sucks. But oh well. The weapon system is very similar to Dark Souls. You can basically have one item in front, and then you just press the weapon swap button to just go to the next weapon. So the most traditional thing is to have your main close quarters weapon and then a bayonet as your secondary weapon. So the blood codes, they do things, they can also do like melee attacks. So some blood codes give you powers where you can like disappear and then take a blade out of the sky and hit the enemy and do all the cool stuff. I found that there was one blood code at the end of the game that did actually allow me to have most, but not all, of the good powers. I think it was called Skatheth? No, I think it was Queen's Claw, actually, which is like the third boss's blood code you get, which is really random. Well, not the third boss, but the third successor, which is one of the main characters in the game. So I should maybe talk a bit about the story. So it's cool. I don't know. Your characters essentially are, they're not exactly vampires. This might be like my headcanon, or am I mixing it up with something, but they essentially have this special blood, which was like some from foreign creature. They don't really explain how they found this blood, but it's a lot more similar to Bloodborne, where they find this blood of this eldritch, alien, demon, otherworldly thing. And what happens in Bloodborne, what happens in Code Vein at least, is that they create a vaccine from it that can bring people back from the dead, and if you inject it in the heart. So once they're back from the dead, they basically die, but they respawn at these white trees, at these roots. And when you die, you lose part of your memories, but you're basically immortal. And you don't need to eat or sleep, but you do need to drink blood. And human blood is the most valuable. And it's weird because these trees also grow fruits called blood beads, which are literally these fruits made of blood. However, if you do get stabbed at the heart where your parasite lives, then you die for good and you turn to ashes. So this might be my headcanon, but I'm pretty sure the trees are essentially these veins, literally an extension of the original creature that they derived this blood vaccine from. I think the creature's consciousness has been since then it has been destroyed or dissipated, but its body, which are these white trees which kind of grow throughout the world and produce these blood fruits, are they're kind of like part of this weird alien thing, but this organism, but it doesn't have a consciousness. And part of the lore, I think, is that there's this really powerful enemy, which the consciousness is revived, and this thing is pissed off. And so what they have to do, they have to divide it into pieces, and then, people have to basically go off into the wilderness and just wait for this thing to dissipate or hold on to, the essence of this weird alien creature that they've abused and wants to kill everything. And so, of course, some mad scientist guy's like, I'm going to combine all the pieces, and then the Triforce of Power will be mine, and it won't betray me at all, etc., etc. But I'm going to talk more about the story, because I can't really give any spoilers. But it's pretty, it's decent. The music. The music in Vane is... I almost said perfect, but it's like a perfect balance, I guess, where you have these beautiful choruses with organs and this really powerful, dank, I don't want to say church music, but dank church music that's really powerful and really good. And then the only other music in the game is EDM. Not EDM, but treble, I don't know, fighting music with a bit of techno and bass and instrumentals. So, hey, those are my two favorite things. So it's really good in that department. They also have this main theme, which they use as a leitmotif for all of the memory sections, which there are a lot, but at different memories they'll use, it's a beautiful song, but they'll use either a piano as the main point, a violin or strings, or they will use vocals, and those are my favorite, when it's just the vocals and you're like, oh. I think the track is called Memories of the Lost. And so this is the other thing. So instead of going hollow and going crazy, people become lost. So even though these revenants, which is what they call the dudes, even though they can't die unless their heart is pierced, they can basically go hollow or go crazy, and then they become lost. And when that happens, they actually do transform into these spiky, edgy creatures that just mindlessly roam looking for blood. And so, yeah, so I talked about characters, story, music. The lore is, I think, pretty good. It's, if not a bit underdeveloped and loosely put together. I mean, I had the same kind of issue with Bloodborne, because, I don't know, I feel the lore on Bloodborne is really well done, but the way it's translated is I would be reading item descriptions, and in Dark Souls it was very clear, oh, this is connected to this, but in Bloodborne it's like what are you talking about? Like, I know, like, I remember the whole choir. I never understood, what the hell are these guys? What are they doing? How do you get more insight? I was really confused. In Vayne, it's definitely more straightforward, just not quite as developed. It's like these thorns came out of the ground, and there was, the Day of Judgment, and then there were like first, second, third, fourth generation revenants, and the queen showed up at some point, and now there's red mist around, and like it's kind of difficult by the end of it to piece it all together. I think what happened was they got this vaccine, then they're like, oh dude, oh damn, we can make people immortal, and then there was a huge war over resources because like you have immortal soldiers, that's awesome. Oh no, I think they did say they created the revenants to fight these other monsters that also showed up at the time of this monster that they created the vaccine from, which makes sense. And then they used that same blood to create these super soldiers. And then they realized the super soldiers started turning into monsters, and they had to make more super soldiers. And then they had this one person who had the highest sync rate, if you will, with this special blue blood. And so she goes crazy and becomes essentially the consciousness of the creature that was killed. And then they have to make more revenants to fight her. And yeah, I don't know. That's the lore I want to give you guys, and it's not really a spoiler because by the end of the game you're kind of like, wait, is this all connected? So it's kind of like what I've understood, and I haven't named any names, but if you play it, you'll enjoy it, believe me. Yeah, no, music is good, characters are good. Oh my god, the most important thing. So, I know it's difficult to say this, but I enjoy it. The fact that Code Vein is not as hard as Dark Souls and Bloodborne, which, there it is, I said it, alright? And I enjoy that. It's still hard, though, believe me. But what is a huge help, and you can't turn this off, but so in the game, one mechanic that Vayne does that is totally different and totally game changer, besides the whole focus meter and blood codes, is that you have an AI partner who is not retarded. And I cannot stress this. This is some of the best, not the best AI, but like AI, you either love it, you're either indifferent to it or you hate it. And this one, I really, really like it because I never had an issue. I can think of so many games where it's like, oh my god, that either looks stupid or you just alerted the enemy or whatever. The AI in this game is really good. For example, so the one way it does, so to speak, nerf the experience is that they can heal you. And they only do this when you hit 0 HP. And then it has a cooldown of like 5 seconds. So in Dark Souls, you could be going through, something one hits you, and you're like, god dang dingly darn it. Guess I have to lose 12 hours of progress unless you go back and get your thing. So what happens is, even if you get one-shotted by something, your partner revives you, and you're like, oh damn, I still have more of a chance now, which I love it. It's a great system because you just don't get as mad, and you're like, okay, this gives me more of a chance. It's more breathing room. It's good. So the AI character, they also do actually do damage in battle, which is surprising. Like the amount of damage they did, it wasn't too much, but I found that sometimes they would help you out a lot, and then other times they'd be low on Ichor, so they wouldn't help you as much. But when they did help you, it was a huge help. It's like, okay, you take that guy, I'll take this guy, and I'll help you finish up with him. What else does the AI do? Oh, so this is the other, there were times where I had wow moments. For example, we went up against a bunch of long-range enemies, and what she did is she stood in front of me and guarded. And I was like, wait, what are you doing? I'm like, oh, I get it. And And so while she guarded the incoming shots, I was able to pull up my musket and shoot from behind her and take out all the guys. I'm like, oh my god, that was really cool. And it just happened naturally. It's not like she said anything or like you pressed a button. They just naturally did it. So, like, hats off to this team. They did some really cool stuff. The other huge, this has happened in so many games and just made me so angry, is that, so the other thing, is similar to Dark Souls, you can backstab, obviously. So, and you can parry. But when you want to backstab and you have an AI partner, the worst thing is that they alert the enemy. However, there are certain enemies where as soon as I start slow walking towards them, my partner gets the idea and they follow closely behind me. And there was even time where one of the characters said, "Oh, I see what you're doing." I'm like, really? That's really cool. So the AI gets, they don't attack the characters that haven't aggroed yet, and just like, it sounds so simple, but it was so refreshing to have that experience, because there's been so many games where my AI partner we're killing things and it'll start attacking the guy who hasn't aggroed yet, who I wanted to sneak attack because he's distracted. And you make me happy, Code Vein. You make me very happy. Other things that Code Vein does get right, especially in terms of endgame content, and you'll want to listen to this because I didn't know this, and it does help knowing it, because a lot of other games kind of throttle you. So, for example, in Dark Souls, when you beat the game, you either light the fire or you leave. The first time I beat Dark Souls, it was the final fire. It's like, oh wait, I want to go back and spend my points or do something else, and because I was like, oh, this might be the final fire, this might be the final cutscene. So I left, which actually triggers the bad ending to Dark Souls, or the dark ending. And I was like, oh, thanks for the heads up, guys. But I mean, that's Dark Souls. It's unfair. So I guess my whole like synopsis is that Code Vein is a more fair, edgy, stylish version of Dark Souls. That's kind of like my conclusion, which I won't say now because I have more time. So in Code Vein, what happens is when you beat the game and you beat the final boss, you get a message that's like, okay, you beat the game, congrats. If you want to start New Game Plus, if you feel like it, you can go to this place in the home base and then activate it. I was like, that's so nice, because I might not want to start a New Game Plus. I might want to go back to the last or most recent area where the enemies have the highest, they call it haze in this game, sort of blood or whatever, or blood echoes. So I want to go back, grind there, and get, more leveled up for New Game Plus. And this game was like, yeah, go ahead and do that. I'm like, thank you, game. Thank you for giving me the option to start New Game Plus after I've beaten the boss. And then they do this other thing where you go to New Game Plus, and it's like, do you want to increase difficulty? What game asks you this? So it's a Dark Souls game where it's like, hey, you can play through the thing again, and it's either like, if you're a hardcore traditional guy, you'll do it on the enhanced difficulty for the extra challenge, or if you just want to rush through and get the achievements, you can just keep it on the same difficulty with your endgame stats. That's amazing. Thank you. And then, even when you do that and you start New Game Plus, you have a little thing at your home base, which is like, hey, is the game, if you did choose enhanced difficulty, hey, is it too hard for you? Because if you want, you can still reduce the difficulty, but you can't, put it back. So you have a one-time use where you can say, okay, lower the difficulty and for the rest of the game. And you have a one-time use for that. And it's like, but it gives you that option. It's so refreshing. Whoever made this game put a lot of effort and love into it. Plus the amount of blood codes, I was really surprised. There is a blood code for every character and every side character. In total, there's probably 50 of them. And for each blood code, you have at least 5 powers. So, is that like 500? My god. Yeah, it must be, I guess, 500 different powers. That's a lot. I didn't realize that till now. But yeah. If I had to choose my favorite power, I don't know. I guess the ones that shoot out the balls of electricity, or the balls of blood, or fire, or ice, or whatever, that just go around you everywhere. The Army of Set is a really good one. Oh, not the Army of Set. It's called Sands of Disaster or something, where it's like the widest area of effect, and it just makes a sandstorm. It's pretty cool. I guess other things to talk about. The weapon designs are cool. The character designs are cool. Oh my god, the character creator. I can't believe I forgot about it. The character creator in this game, it's good. I don't need to say anything to that. Like, you can just buy this game and just play for the character creator. There was some YouTube comment that was actually funny saying, why is there a Dark Souls minigame in my anime character creator? And he's got a point. I've made like 7 different characters, some of them based off other anime anime girls or whatever. It's fun. It's good. Like, it's a really good character creator. And it's one of those things where it doesn't have too many options, but just enough. I think it might have too many color options, but whatever, it's fine. And yeah, you can like do crazy stuff with your characters. You can make them look super retarded if you want. Like, it's really cool. Oh, and the other thing that's awesome is that you can change your appearance on the fly back at your home base. So for example, if you don't like the way your character looks, you can change it at any time, and it still translates in cutscenes. Like, oh. Code Vein, you done me right. And you can make totally new appearances. You can be like, oh, maybe I want to be a boy now, or I want to have purple hair, or I want to change the way I look entirely. You can do that. And that is mind-blowing to me. It's so cool. Also, they have a hot springs area. Just saying. And actually, the hot spring does serve as a purpose. You can either like review your story events, and also if you've like lost your souls or haze or whatever in a really tough area, and you're like, I ain't getting that back, and it's a lot, you can go to the hot spring, and you can it'll retrieve half of all your points. So it's like, you can be like, you know what, I'm retreating, I'll just take half and just go, like the casino. You can do that. The other cool thing is that of all the partners, you get like 6, I think, total, who have 5 or 6. No, I think it's 5 actually. And they all have their own different play styles and dialogue too when they encounter things. The dialogue does get a bit much, where they have this one stupid dialogue where it's like, don't run far ahead. It's like, excuse me, I'm going. Like, you either come or you don't. I don't know. But yeah, characters, music, design. Definitely pick up Code Vein if you want something different. And because it's like a more fair, edgy anime Dark Souls. And I could probably talk for more, but I think I'll leave it for that. I'm really happy with it. It's a good game, and probably the sleeper hit of 2019. Thanks, guys.